Board meeting will now come to order at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 12th, 2013. If everybody would please rise, and I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Linda Soto.
Present.
Trustees Diernoski.
Here.
Kreis.
Here.
Duberstein. Here. Barrett.
Here.
And Walkington.
Here.
Trustee Daly is absent.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Trustee Jerry Daly also recently had some minor shoulder surgery, and I'm going to report he's home and recovering. Had his first session of therapy today, and he's in a little bit of pain, but he's okay. I'd like a motion for approval of tonight's agenda, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustees Diernoski.
Aye.
Kreis.
Aye.
Duberstein.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, we have a special guest here tonight. A good friend, former mayor of Brown Lake, Bill Jenkins, who is now with the Lake County Health Department and is heading up their Community Health Center Drug-Free Communities program. Bill, we give you the floor.
Thank you, and I promise to be only 10 minutes, as I assured you. Madam Mayor and trustees, thank you for giving you some information. I thank you for your time in advance. I'm the project coordinator for the Lake County Underage Youth Drug and Alcohol Prevention Task Force. It's a mouthful. I actually think I said it wrong, to tell you the truth. It's the Underage Drinking and Drug Prevention Task Force. It's a task force that was formed out of the After School Coalition back in 2006 when the accidents that happened in Deerfield when some kids were partying in their parents' house underage and got in an accident and there were numerous fatalities. A group of police officers across the county got together and formed this committee with the sole purpose of preventing youth from getting underage youth from getting alcohol, tobacco, any kind of drug. As that coalition grew, we now have 40 or 50 full-time coalition members who volunteer their time. We also applied for a drug-free communities grant from the federal government, which is how I am a full-time employee of the task force. I'm paid through Lake County, who's the fiscal agent of the task force. One of our major missions under this grant is social hosting. Social hosting ordinances have been passed by 30 of 52 communities in Lake County. It's also been passed by the county, and just recently it was passed by the state. Law came into effect on January 1st. The social hosting ordinance basically puts the onus onto the homeowner when there's a party where police are called and there's an underage drinking violation. This allows there to be more accountability to parents rather than having them throw their hands up and say, I had no idea they were drinking. And the old way, I guess, was you had to catch them. This way, it's your house. If you don't know what's going on in your house, you're still involved. One of the things that the state law did is very generic, very bland with the penalty phase. What communities have been doing, and what I've given you an example of is one done in Round Lake Beach, is they have attached a more stringent form of ordinance that allows the community, in your case Hainesville, to recover any damages or any costs from that incident. So it can bring revenue to your community rather than just having a police call and dealing with all what goes with it without any cost recovery. Obviously, we have a variety of sample ordinances that I can forward to you and or your attorney if you like. The second thing I'd like to talk about is prescription drug abuse. Prescription drug abuse is one of the fastest growing drug problems in this country. What happens is kids believe that they can get drugs from their parents' medicine cabinets and their relatives' medicine cabinets. And because it's prescribed by a doctor, even even though it's not prescribed for them, they think it's a little easier and a little safer. And what happens is kids get hooked on Vicodin, OxyContin, and a variety of other things. What happens, though, is on the street, OxyContin and Vicodin tablets are $50 to $60 a tablet. What happens is they either start stealing them, stealing money and breaking into places to do it, or they discover that heroin only costs $15 a hit. The chemical, heroin, is very similar to OxyContin and Vicodin. So the high and the rush is the same. Heroin, when you hooked on heroin generally ends up in death. Heroin addicts have a very short lifespan and a very difficult recovery rate if they can recover. So one of the things the task force is looking at is creating a way of taking prescription medications out of that you're not using anymore, out of your medicine cabinet, and disposing of them safely. Not flushing them down the drain, because that actually could pollute your water table. So what we have created is we have 12 boxes throughout the county, and I have a map of where those boxes are located in my little flyer. We've created a sort of it looks like a mailbox, and you can toss your drugs in there. And they have to be, per the DEA regulations, they have to be in a police department, and the police officer has to take them out and keep them in an evidence locker. And what happens is twice a year, the DEA has a prescription drug take-back day. And the police officers would take them out of the evidence locker and dispose of them at the DEA site. And they basically have a bunch of giant semis that they just load up and they take it to an incinerator in Indianapolis. The task force is currently working on getting an incinerator for Lake County via Swalco. However, that's not set in stone yet. So there may be a methodology of doing this. I would strongly encourage you to do this. Now, I know you guys have Grace Lake Police, so it would have to be at the Grace Lake Police Station. But there are some of the logistics we could work through. But I would strongly urge you to consider it. It's a very interesting and it's a very worthwhile project. The 12 boxes that we have right now, we take between 2 and 3 tons worth of drugs off the street every year. The box in Lake Zurich, I believe, got close to 1,800 pounds last year of prescription drugs. Yeah, I know, it's pretty amazing. There's an enormous amount of drugs. Zion, who's had the box the longest, every month, consistently, without fail, takes about 100 pounds of prescription drugs off the streets every month. It's just amazing. It just constantly keeps coming. Lastly, our coalition has, as I said earlier, has about 40 to 50 regular members. I would encourage you guys to come to take a look and see what we're doing. We do some amazing things. Our meetings are the third Thursday of every month at 8:30 at the Mundelein Police Department. We only talk for about an hour. We'll put you on a committee if you boldly go. But I would strongly encourage you to do it. Anyway, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think I did it in 10 minutes.
You did great. Questions?
How do they dispose of them? In the container or just dump the pills in?
It doesn't matter, that's the beauty of it. The incinerator takes it right down to ash, so it doesn't matter whatever was in there beforehand. Ideally, it would be out, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so in the containers that are around the county, they can just dump them in?
Correct. Actually, you can throw, you can throw the entire bottle in if you so chose. And in fact, some of the prescription drug boxes have found pot and cocaine in there too. They took the drug give back pretty literally, I guess.
What about things like diabetic supplies and things like that that can then be turned into drug paraphernalia, essentially? Right. I know, particularly my wife has test strips, which is fine, but she has a pen that she uses, and right now there's really no good way to dispose of it. We pay to have our sharps container, so we buy a sharps container that we pay $35 to have it shipped out, disposed of safely, but I think paraphernalia like that might be something.
It can go in the box. Yeah. And any not medical waste, but any medical disposal, hard goods, so to speak, can go in the box.
So like the sharps container itself can just go right into the box?
If it fits, yeah. I don't know the size of it.
I mean, it's sure, it's just.
If it fits, there you go. That's UPS, right? No, that's not.
No, if I can get it in a container, I'll take it anywhere in the world you want to go.
There you go.
Bill, is this, this is in the police department or outside?
It's generally inside the police department, simply for security purposes. I mean, if people are really tossing Vicodin in there, the last thing you want is it right outside where someone can go.
It's what I was wondering.
It seems intuitive, but yes.
And I did give Chief Perlini the heads up, and he was going to relay to Mike Ellis over at Grace Lake that you'll be.
I also forgot to mention, the boxes actually come from an organization called Save a Star, and they're free. They install them. They're somewhat ugly, but they're effective.
Bill, I would like you to expand a little bit more about the heroin, particularly with teens. It is amazing. I think there's still a lot of people that think that heroin only stays within certain demographics, but that's not true in recent years. And it's alarming how many teens, high school and college kids are being exposed to heroin. And I was approached a couple of years ago by a family who had a teen who had indeed gotten hooked on heroin.
Yeah, it's the office, the President's Office of National Drug Policy calls it an epidemic. The prescription drug abuse and heroin, they go hand in hand basically, are rampant. Now, heroin in Lake County is starting to grow. It's relatively small. I mean, in percentage of total drugs abused in the county, it's a relatively small percentage. However, it's a growing percentage. And it does hit, I mean, this county has ranges from, you know, extremely wealthy communities to nice middle class communities to poverty. And the numbers are across the board. We have maps that the coroner has. Actually, you can go to the coroner's website and see heroin deaths and where the person lived and where they got the heroin that killed them. And it's all, the lines go all over the county. And it's eye-opening. Naturally, I went to look where they're coming from around me. But they come from all over, and it cuts across all socioeconomic levels. It cuts across everything. Once you're hooked on heroin, you're hooked, and it's a horrible, horrible drug with the repercussions to any family.
Is there anything that you're doing to coordinate with the police departments if you have an idea of where these things are coming from?
You mean heroin?
Yeah, to arrest the source.
Yeah, the Mike Nierheim, the new state's attorney, has putting together a task force that we're some of our chairman, who is Bruce Johnson from Niagara, is on the committee, and they're looking at that as well as the sheriff on sort of interdicting this. One of the problems is the 294 corridor that comes up through the eastern part of the county tends to be one of the pipelines for heroin running out of Chicago. So it tends to stick along the 294 corridor, and that's where it tends to flow from. And when you see that map that I was talking about, you'll notice that a lot of the purchases were made along that corridor and then were transported back to where they live. So the lines went all over. But yeah, there is a pretty consistent effort about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Bill, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome to stay for our thought-provoking meeting. If you need to leave, we understand.
I think I'll leave. I've seen many meetings. One other thing, I do commend you for considering the marijuana aspect. That is to be commended, and that's a very important thing.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll take public comments. Does the clerk have any forms turned in? No takers, okay, going, gone. Do I have a motion for approval of the omnibus vote agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustees Darrenowski.
Aye.
Freeze.